Hello, everyone, and welcome to UCLI's Wednesday webinars. This is an online series that UCLI offers every Wednesday at 4 p.m. And it is aimed at helping students from high school, college, and law school explore legal education and legal careers. And today's topic is UCLI's resources for undergraduate students. As we shift forward to October, we're also going to be doing a themed month on elections and kind of restructuring our webinar series. So we'll keep you posted if the dates and times stay the same. But for now, we're going to delve right into how UCLI can help undergraduate students navigate their path to law school and beyond. So I'm Ling Ritter, and I'm UCLI's Assistant Director, and I'm here with Melinda Bowen, our Executive Director. And I'll just start by sharing sort of where I'm at in my law school journey. So I am also a recent graduate from college, interested in pursuing law, and my path toward law has sort of looked like this. I grew up in Salt Lake City, spent all of my life here, and then went to New Jersey to study at Princeton for college, where I served on several academic journals and had the chance to play jazz, guitar in coffee shops and just kind of explore. And as I navigated my way through my academic and extracurricular interests, I kind of gravitated towards law. I interned at the Utah Disability Law Center and took a few classes in legal and political history. And I noticed that the more lawyers I talked to in practice, my observation became, well, it doesn't seem like there are a lot of lawyers who are involved in activism as their daily careers. However, if you look at moments of activism and social transformation in our history, when we made leaps and bounds in the progress of our political structures and our social and structural equality, lawyers were all over that work. And I was really interested in the role that lawyers can play in sort of pushing us forward on societal change. And so that's sort of what got me interested in law. And then about a year ago, I joined the team at UCLI, and I've been really happy to be a part of it. So if I can help answer any questions about sort of that experience or questions that you might have about the things that you might want to do in undergrad or explore law, I'm happy to help, but I will pass the torch to our Executive Director, Melinda, who can explain how UCLI, the resources and programming that UCLI can afford to you to help you better navigate your journey in law.
There we go. Thank you so much, Ling. I'm really excited to talk today about some of the programs and resources that we've developed and are still developing for undergrad students throughout the state and elsewhere. We have several students that are attending that may be local, like Utah natives, but are attending undergrad schools around the country that have been part of UCLI as interns or otherwise have been involved in our program. So these programs that I'm talking about are for students at any undergraduate institution. So not necessarily just those that we know can automatically think of here in Utah, but any undergraduate students who are considering practicing law. We'd love to be helpful in any way we can, and hopefully also encourage you to come to Utah to practice. But the main goal is to hopefully help you get to the legal profession first. So there are a lot of amazing resources out there available through all the different undergraduate institutions and other organizations, but UCLI has developed some unique ones that I think are really exciting and helpful. So we have a committee that's called our Pledge Committee, and Pledge stands for Promoting Legal Education to Diverse Groups Everywhere. So that acronym, excuse me, kind of covers much of what we do at UCLI, actually. And under that committee, we have programs including this webinar. So Pledge has 3 distinct prongs or three different areas where we try to develop programs in the hope of increasing the pipeline of diverse students that are coming into the law. The first is financial support, which is really important. We don't want financial barriers to be something that we don't want them to be prohibitive to any student. I know when I was going to college, there were a lot of financial expenses that come up that I just didn't know about. I was pretty naive about a lot of the process, including, how expensive it is to take the LSAT or to take an LSAT prep course, and things like that. So one of the big things that we're trying to do is to make sure that those financial burdens don't become complete barriers to entry for people. So what we have developed an LSAT scholarship and LSAT prep scholarship. We offer scholarships for students to take LSAT prep courses. It's been shown that if you take a prep course for the LSAT, your scores go up considerably. I know I did not. I used books from the public library because I was I was worried about the cost of an LSAT prep course, and I did fine. I did well, but I could have done much better. And that was one of the lessons that I learned the hard way that I could have. I mean, I got into the school that I wanted to get into and I did well, but it could have been a different story in a lot of ways. So the LSAT prep courses have really honed their expertise and have created courses that are very successful. So there's several throughout Utah, and through our LSAT prep scholarships, you can take any course that you see as being a good fit for you. There's some offered by BYU specifically for pre-law students and the youth too. Both universities have their own in-house prep courses. There's also local Utah companies that have courses, including ACE Test Prep. And then there's national companies like Kaplan that have their courses as well. No matter what course you choose to take, if you qualify and receive a UCLI LSAT prep scholarship, we will cover up to $1,000 of your costs for the prep courses. And in addition, ACE Test Prep has partnered with UCLI to offer a discount to students who are coming through UCLI. So a 50% discount through ACE Test Prep, and that's been very generous. We're very grateful to ACE Test Prep and to the company's owner, Brent, who has graciously and very generously partnered with UCLI on that. In addition, the U of U has recently included a scholarship discount as well, and we can give you more information about that if you're interested. Excuse me. In addition, we have a scholarship database that we keep current at UCLI, and this database includes, so beyond the costs of LSAT prep courses, especially for you who are already undergrad students, you all know there's a lot of costs associated with just getting your undergrad degree. Housing, tuition, books, all of those things add up very quickly. So the scholarship database we try to keep current that has a lot of opportunities for scholarships, generally some that are targeted to specific identity groups, and some that are targeted specifically for diversity and inclusion. But we try to keep that database current so that all those opportunities are readily available in one spot where students can go and try and alleviate the costs that are associated with obtaining higher education. So that's our financial support prong. We also do educational outreach. So, oh, and I should say, Ling in the chat has added the links for our scholarship database and for other resources. So please follow the chat there. So in educational outreach, this is our programs that are meant to get out into schools and into other groups to help students start thinking about the law as a legal or as a career, or for those that have already started thinking about it, to answer questions and to be a resource in helping to understand the process of getting to law school and into the legal profession. So Wednesday webinars is part of that outreach. We've been trying to educate people in this audience as to the process of getting to law school and what legal careers can look like. There's a variety. And as Ling said, we're going to be adapting and evolving over the next couple months, and hopefully focus on themes and issues that are relevant right now and to the students, but still help to navigate some of the procedural hurdles that we run into. In addition, undergraduate students can sign up to become UCLI ambassadors, and that essentially means that you are the spokesperson for UCLI in your given community. So if you are on the campus at the University of Utah or at SLIC, for instance, and you sign up to be a UCLI ambassador, that means that you'll receive information about UCLI resources and events, and then you'll also help us to be able to do outreach to your fellow students in ways that are meaningful on your particular campus. There's a list of requirements, including holding UCLI events, coming to a few meetings. It's not difficult to be a UCLI ambassador, and we'd really love to have as many students as possible join us. So please look up our website, utahcli.org/student-resources. I guess that's the right terminology, /dash, right? So it's in the chat as well. But the ambassador program is a great way to not only start thinking about the law, but to get your other students involved in that effort as well, or get your friends and other colleagues and things like that interested as well. The third prong of our pledge program is the mentoring component. And at the undergraduate level, we are developing a paired mentoring program, and it's a team-based mentoring program. So research has shown that mentoring programs are more successful when they're done in a team approach. And for UCLI, that essentially means that if, as an undergrad, you choose to enroll in our mentoring program, you would be paired with not just one attorney, but maybe 2 or 3, and a law student so someone who's closer in time in terms of the process and can help you navigate some of the hurdles or the steps that have to happen as you're going to law school. And then perhaps some junior and senior attorneys who can also be there as mentors to help you build a community and a network, and also answer general questions about the law and things like that. So we are developing those programs, and we'd love to have you join us as mentees in that program and to continue on to law school, and then hopefully be mentors to undergrad students later as well. So those are the programs that UCLI currently has for undergrad students. We also recognize and are so grateful for several partner organizations that are doing really, really great work in this space as well. We are, excuse me, the University of Utah, for instance, has their own webinar on Wednesdays, in fact, but theirs is at 6:30 p.m. And the admissions staff at the U's Law School goes through and walks through different components of applying to law school. So for instance, the LSAT, but beyond that, your GPA, your transcript, letters of recommendation, resumes, personal statements or diversity statements, or the different statements and essays that you have to do for specific schools, and then biographical information. So there's all these different components of your law school applications, and the admissions staff at the U's Law School will help to cover some of the nuances and tips and tricks on how to make those applications as appealing and successful as they can be. Again, that's Wednesdays at 6:30. And you can go to the University of Utah, the law school's webpage, to find the links for that. It's open to anyone. It's not just for University of Utah students. They invite all undergrad students to join them. And in addition, for those students that attend, you can get a $60 or a fee waiver for the application fees for the University of Utah. So if you're applying to law schools and you're thinking, okay, maybe I'll consider the University of Utah, if you attend these webinars, you'll get a fee waiver from their staff to apply. So it will waive the application fee, which is $60. So it's a great value. It's a good use of your hour if you're thinking of considering applying to the U's Law School. Today's topic for the U, by the way, is on letters of recommendation and CAS reports, which is basically your academic report that goes into your applications and kind of is a cover sheet of your academic record for your law school applications. The admissions staff at the U's Law School will be the group that has the greatest expertise, or among that group, you know, these admissions officers have the greatest expertise in this area. But we would also like to be helpful because those webinars can be much larger than ours are. So if you have specific questions following up from those webinars at the U and you don't have an opportunity to follow up with their staff or with someone during the chat or something along those lines if the time runs out, please feel free to reach out to us at ucli.utahcli.org. Let me say that one more time. I kind of jumbled it. So ucli@utahcli.org. Please reach out to us and we are happy to follow up and help navigate some of those questions or put you in touch with the U's admissions director or anything that would be helpful in that realm to help you navigate the process. So those are some of the resources that we have at UCLI for undergrad students, and we'd love to develop more. So if you have an idea for a particular resource that seems to be missing, please reach out and let us know, and we can talk about the best ways to get those up and running. Those are the things that we had for today. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, I should also mention, so today's webinar was for undergrads. Next week's webinar, and I'll mention this again at the end, but next week's webinar, we will have a panel of 3 recent law school graduates. And I think this will be a really helpful panel for new law school students and also undergrad students. So we will have 3 recent graduates, 2 from BYU Law and 1 from the U's Law School, who will be talking on the theme of what I wish I knew in law school. So good advice they received, bad advice they received, or advice that they wish they'd received, or something along those lines. Tips and tricks on how to navigate the process from the perspective of a recent grad. And I think those types of panelists are really helpful because they're so close in time to their experience in law school. For someone like me who's been out of law school for about a decade now, I could give you my tips and tricks, but they're maybe a little bit dated now, and also maybe kind of tainted with nostalgia and things like that. So it may not be as honest and candid. So tune in with us next week at 4 p.m. for that panel with our 3 recent law school grads. And then 2 weeks from now, we're going to have our first UCLI virtual book club. So on the 5th Wednesdays, or any month that has a 5th Wednesday, we're going to have a virtual book club. And this month, because it's National Hispanic Heritage Month, we are going to have a discussion of Paul Ortiz's book, An African American and Latinx History of the United States. And we're so excited to join us that day on September 30th at 4. We'll be joined by Dr. David James, or DJ Gonzalez, who is a history professor at BYU. And he has done a lot of great work in helping his students to understand the importance of seeing different perspectives in our historical study, and why our study of history may have been limited to one dominant perspective, and why that might leave out certain other viewpoints and ideas and events even. So we're really excited to have our discussion of that book. Again, that's An African American and Latinx History of the United States by Paul Ortiz. And that's available on Amazon or other websites where you get your books. So we're really excited to talk about these resources and to offer them to all of you, but maybe we can jump in with any questions. Does anyone have questions? If you have them, you can put them in the chat, either privately to the panelists or to the whole group, either way.
I do see a question we can start off with, which is, do I need to have a specific major in college to study law? What do you think, Melinda?
Well, so you don't. Technically you don't. I think there's maybe a couple different aspects to that question, right? Like, do you absolutely need to? And then the other question is maybe related, that is there are there better majors than others in terms of pursuing law school? And excuse me, I would say pursue the degree that you want to pursue. And maybe that's vague and wishy-washy, but it does not matter what your undergrad degree really is for law school. You'll see a lot of political science majors going into law school, or economics majors, or I'm trying to think, English majors going to law school. And I started out as a poli-sci major, and then I changed to teaching social studies. So I was going to be a high school history teacher or social studies teacher. So either way, I mean, no matter what your major is, you can apply to law school. I would say the key is to do well in that major, as well as you can in that major, and find something that you like so that you will be engaged in doing well. Ling, what do you think? Does that answer the question, you think?
Definitely. I agree completely with that. And I would just say it's less about the major and more about how prepared you are to enter law school. And so, if your coursework incorporates some, critical writing, critical reading, skill building opportunities, I think that's totally sufficient. And it really doesn't matter in name what you major in.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And I will say, I mean, in my law school class, for instance, there was a whole host of majors. We had someone who was like a piano performance major, and others who were biomechanical engineering majors who were planning to do patent law. And so there was a wide variety. Okay, we have a few other questions here. We'll just start at the top. So who are the best people to ask for letters of recommendation from? Faculty, professors, admin, etc. I think, so today at the U's webinar, they're handling letters of recommendation specifically, and that may be something that their admissions staff is better suited to give you a really relevant answer to. For my own personal perspective, I would say whomever can actually speak to having a personal relationship with you and who knows your work. So if it's a professor, make sure it's a professor who you've done work with, or who you had a class where you were able to interact with in a really interpersonal way, so that they can write a letter that's meaningful instead of just saying something to the effect that this student did well in my class. What do you think, Ling?
Same here. I've heard a lot of stories from admissions officers who recount the times that they have gotten rec letters from senators and the president, but they were just form letters where they didn't even know the student that they were writing for. And so I think that advice that you gave, Melinda, in terms of make sure that they know you and can speak to the quality of your work is a great one. So.
Yeah. My letters of recommendation were from a professor who I was a TA for, and then from my boss at the school where I worked in between undergrad and law school. But so they both knew my personal work pretty closely. But yeah, I would definitely recommend going at 6:30 to the U's webinar on that today, because they are going to be talking in depth about letters of recommendation. Let's see. Is there financial aid available for private institutions that are T14? Ling, do you have any knowledge on that? I actually don't.
Yeah, T14, it refers to top 14 according to US News rankings. And yes, those are Googleable. And so I would definitely check the specific policy of your institutions. A lot of them, so I believe all of the T14 offer some sort of financial aid. Scholarships, scholarships for people who have encountered adversity, scholarships for people who want to go into public interest, and could use help, paying for that public service. So there are a lot of opportunities to finance your legal education. So I would check that out. Definitely ask that to the U as well, and check out some fee waivers as you apply would be some tips around financial aid.
Those are great suggestions. Okay, our next question is, what's the best way to study for the LSAT? We talked about earlier our LSAT prep course scholarships, where UCLI can provide financial assistance for those prep courses. it's my personal opinion that almost everyone should take an LSAT prep course, because they are specifically designed and they've been honed and kind of polished to really help students. And many of them allow for a retake of the course if you didn't get a score that you're happy with. For instance, I know the U's course, you can take the course again if you'd like to, if your LSAT score is not where you hoped it would be. So I would say look at LSAT prep courses. Another tip that I've heard from admissions staff is that it needs to be a priority and treated like a job. So maybe a part-time job, but it really has to take priority. So if you're done with your classes, or if you're working, once you're done with work, like, you have designated time for your LSAT prep time. It can't be something that's just like, oh, I'll get to it when I have a chance. It has to be really regular, structured, dedicated time, so that you can really put in the time necessary to get a good score. That LSAT score, unfortunately, or fortunately or unfortunately, I guess, is still a huge metric that law schools use, and it's a big one. So it's in your best interest to put as much time into it as you possibly can. Do you have anything to add, Link?
Nothing to add there. That's
okay. Yeah. And I would say that one of the benefits of those LSAT prep courses is that you get access to lots of practice tests. And I would say those practice tests, the same is true in law school. Practice tests are the best way to study for the actual test, to actually put yourself under the conditions and kind of condition your mind and your body to be used to taking those tests is really, I think you can't really put a value on how helpful those are. Okay. Our last question that we have right now is tips for personal statements. They're so tricky to write. Ooh, Ling, you're more timely on this. I'm not sure my experience. I can talk about my experience, but
yeah.
we'll go with you first.
Well, I agree. They are so tricky to write. I would say, I don't know if reverse outlining is the right term for this, but I would say start with the qualities that you want to emphasize about yourself, whether it's, your passion for advocacy, or the way that you've learned to craft language, and the respect that you have for the way that language can persuade, or just kind of dig deep and think about what characteristics of mine have I cultivated that I really want law school admissions officers to know that I have. And then I would, from there, pick examples that are most illustrative of those qualities. So whether it's honing in on specific parts of your resume that are not covered. So maybe you have a resume or an internship on your resume, but maybe it's like a specific experience that you had in that was revealing for you, or maybe in a class, your aha moments. Can you think about what those are? Times that you stepped up to demonstrate your qualities. And then I would say try to weave it together in a coherent story that culminates in sort of a way to showcase those qualities without having to explain them so much. So I guess what I'm trying to say is show not tell as a principle. So focus on the qualities, then the experiences, and the story as the whole. So that's sort of my initial reflection on personal statements, but maybe I can continue to think about that as Melinda sort of fills in the gaps in what I may have missed.
I think that's actually pretty consistent with even my experience, which has been, like I said, 10, although now I graduated about 10 years ago. So it's now maybe 13 years ago that I was applying to law school. When I was writing my personal statement, my husband had written his a year before. He started law school a year before, and we were married at the time. And he had several pre-law advisors review his. And one of the main tips that everyone said was, make sure there's actual stories to back it up, so you'll be remembered, not just, I feel like I'm passionate about social activism, so I want to go to law school. Like, have something that's like a story. People remember stories more than they remember just statements, right? So for instance, my sister had just gone to prison right before I was applying for law school. So that was a pretty not great story for me personally, but great in terms of timeliness for my law school applications. So that was kind of what I focused on, and things that I saw as I experienced the process from an observer's point of view, and why that kind of helped motivate me further to go to law school, even though I'd always wanted to go, like new things that I had learned that really kind of solidified that desire for me. I don't know if that was I've never followed up with admissions people, although I will say this, and I don't know if he was just being nice, but after I was accepted to law school, I met with the dean of admissions at the time. His name was Carl Hernandez. He's now a professor at BYU. And he did say he remembered my story. So I don't know if that's evidence that it helped, but I do think being remembered is part of the key, right? Is standing out. So I would say, I would just echo what Ling said. And I will also add, again, the use law school webinars. In fact, I'm going to put the link to those in the chat. But those, today they're doing letters of recommendation and the CAS reports. Next week, however, they are doing personal statements and resumes. So they'll be covering those specific application materials in depth next week. So next Wednesday at 6:30, that'll be their topic. And I'm sure, I mean, there may be a lot of people on that call, but they'll be answering those questions and going through that material really thoroughly. But if after those webinars, like I said, if after today, they don't answer your questions about CAS reports and letters of recommendation, please come back to us and we can try and help fill in any gaps. And the same for next week. If next week we still have, if it brings up more questions about personal statements that you didn't know you had, or if it still didn't answer questions that you did know you have, please come back to us and we're happy to help in any way that we can. All right, any other questions that we can ask or answer, I should say? I could ask a whole bunch of questions, but I should probably try to answer them here. No? Okay, well, we really want this webinar to be helpful and beneficial for all of you. So as we said before, we're working on it as we go, but please reach out to us if you have suggestions or feedback for those that have attended in the past or those that are attending today. Please let us know how we can improve and make this helpful, or things that we're doing now that are helpful. We really want it to be a good resource. So again, our email is ucli@utahcli.org, and we're here and ready to help, and we are so excited to have you here with us on Wednesdays at 4. So next week, we'll look forward to seeing you all at the same time, 4 o'clock, and we'll be talking about what I wish I knew in law school. And then the next week, we'll have our book club on an African American and Latinx history of the United States. Thank you all for joining us today.